Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Today we will witness the great wisdom and compassion Jesus shows a woman accused of adultery and brought before him by Pharisees, asking if she should be stoned to death. We learn what Jesus has to say from John's Gospel. Chapter 8, verse 7. So when they continued asking him, he lifted up himself, and said unto them, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. This beautiful story shows us the wisdom and compassion of Jesus, who...
Please excuse me for interrupting, but this story isn't in the earliest manuscripts of John's Gospel.
Whatever do you mean, child? It is written here in my Bible, as plain as day. Everyone knows the story of the woman taken in adultery and the wise words Jesus said about casting the first stone at her.
Yes, I know what is written in the Bible. However, most biblical scholars agree that the story of the woman taken in adultery in John's Gospel was added centuries later by scribes. It is not found in any earlier manuscripts of John's Gospel. If you look at the writing style of the passage, you will also see it is written in a very different style to the verses which surround it.
Nonsense, child. What proof do you have for such blasphemy?
As I said, the earliest manuscripts of John's Gospel do not include the story of the woman taken in adultery and what Jesus said about it. This story first appears in manuscripts dated from the 10th century, nearly 1,000 years after the events are said to have taken place. The story is not in any of the many earlier manuscripts of John's Gospel that were written before the 10th century. It is therefore widely accepted by biblical scholars that the story was added by scribes in the 10th century, and never actually happened.
Nonsense, child. Even if this was true and the story was made up 10 centuries later, we can still learn from what Jesus meant to teach us.
If you don't know what Jesus said, how can you possibly know what he meant?
Foolish child. We don't need to know. We have faith.
Faith. The excuse that people give themselves to believe something without evidence?
Yes, child, that is what we mean by faith.
Would you allow yourself to be operated on by someone who didn't have any knowledge of surgery, and only had faith that he could safely perform the operation?
No. Of course not, don't be so silly.
I didn't think so.